Sure. Well, my
Yeah.
father was 50 when I was born. My father had a small mom and pop grocery store. He was an immigrant to Seattle.
Yeah.
And, I would go after school to the store every day. My mother was working there and my dad was working there. And it was really a small mom and pop. And I used to watch my dad and pay attention and do little chores around the store and eat Twinkies and cupcakes, and those
Yeah.
delicious fruit pies that I love, you know. And one day I was standing up at the counter. My dad was ringing up a customer. Now in those days, they had charge accounts and in the store. So the little booklet for each customer, my dad would ring the customer up, take the slip, put it against the book, staple it to the book. At the end of the month, he would bill the customer.
Yeah.
Well, he would ring the customer up, and he was almost done. He said to me, Howard, go get me a couple of baskets of strawberries. And so I went to the back of the store. I brought the strawberries up. My dad put them in the bag, and the customer walked out. Well, I was old enough to realize that my dad had rung those strawberries up on the cash register. And so I said, Dad, you forgot to ring those up on the cash register. And he just looked at me and said, Howard, not everything we do in life do we need to get paid for. And he said, these people are not just our customers. They're our friends and our neighbors. And I happen to know they're struggling right now. They can't afford fresh fruit. And so it's just my way of helping them out. And that's what my dad did. They were neighbors. They weren't customers. They were people that cared about him and that he cared about. And I never forgot that lesson. I didn't understand its importance until much later on in life. But all too often, we're waiting for the trophy. We're waiting for somebody to put money in our pocket. We're waiting for somebody to give us something. When really, the thing in life is to be giving before you get.
Well, welcome back, guys. The guest of this episode is the former president and board of Starbucks, Howard Behar. Needs no introduction. Under his culture of servant leadership, he took this little retail company known as Starbucks. Back then was like 20 stores or something like that. And by the time you retired from Starbucks, was over 20,000, I think, roughly.
Almost 1,000, that's right.
Yeah, and then I think it's probably close to 40,000 store worldwide today. This a massive coffee empire. And I certainly did some preparation research ahead of this interview. And you mentioned that leadership is being a servant, and you don't need a degree to serve. And I think there's a lot of people around my age that they feel like, hey, they need to have this credential, they need to have life experiences together before committing themselves to like a career or business undertaking. And I think in your case, you had 2 years of community college, and then you step into this role and end up building one of the biggest coffee empire in the world. When you joined Starbucks back then, even when you're in 40s, did you knew that this was going to take off, or were there any insecurities and any thoughts like, well, geez, I don't know if I could pull this off?
Well, all of that. We didn't know it was going to do what it did. If I'd have known what was going to happen, I'd have kept all my stock, all this time. But it wasn't just clear sailing. It was just like every other journey in life. It's up, it's down, it's all around. And we had our problems, and there were times when we didn't know if we were going to be able to raise more money, and whether it was going to work outside of the Northwest. And over time, we gained confidence, and it started to work everywhere. And then I was fortunate to get the opportunity to take Starbucks outside of North America, and I became the founding president of Starbucks International.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And in that whole journey that you went through, what were some of the moments that you felt like, wow, this was a really tough task or tough undertaking, especially when you took over as a founding president? Was there any one particular moment you feel like, oh, this is a huge challenge?
Well, it's a 24/7 job. I was traveling
Yeah.
70% of the time outside the country, particularly with international. I was traveling a lot when I was running the domestic business. And so, it takes a lot of energy, and you get tired and worn down a little bit. I never burned out because I loved what I was doing, but I would get tired, and those challenges, sometimes they'd wear me down a little bit, and I'd have to just get back up and keep on going. I don't think, I mean, there are always issues that we face, mistakes we made along the way, things we had to correct, get the wrong people in the wrong spots and, you know,
Mm.
and suffered because of that. And, I don't think until the downturn in 2007, 2008, I don't think we ever had enough people, enough great people.
Wow.
We always were hiring. So,
Mm.
it's like any other journey, but none of it that I feel was insurmountable. Doesn't mean that I
Mm.
slept every night. I didn't. you know, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and jot down some idea on a little pad next to my bed. And I get up in the morning and say, what did I
Wow.
write? Yeah, I couldn't even read what I wrote, but obviously it was important because it woke me up, and so
Mm.
it's that kind of stuff that we all face as human beings. But I never felt that it was it was insurmountable or that we couldn't do it.
Yeah. Gotcha. You mentioned, hey, it's a 24/7 job and you never had enough people. You were always hiring. I think one of the most inspiring story about you when you really began with Starbucks, if I may ask you, kind of share that story, how you approach Howard Schultz. You said, hey, I'll work for free, but I want to check out a company. Am I ask you to share that with my audience?
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, before I met Howard Schultz about a year before I joined Starbucks, and he was
Yeah.
looking for a VP of operations, and I was looking to buy a small company. I wanted to work for myself, so we talked. We had breakfast, and he had this long list, this criteria list of all the things that he wanted in this person. Wanted somebody with a college degree. I didn't have that. He wanted somebody
Yeah.
with a food service background. I didn't have that. Finally, we got down to number 10. Can I breathe? That was the only thing that I qualified from that list. So we shook hands, parted way, and said, see ya. And
Mm.
by accident, I met one of Howard Schultz's right hand people. And he said, we could use a guy like you here. That was about a year later. And I said, well, yeah, I'm still trying to buy this business. He said, no, I want you to talk to Howard. I said, well, I've already done that once. He said, no, I want you to talk to again. We still haven't filled that position. I think he'd be perfect. So Howard and I met,
Mm.
and I said to Howard, look, Howard, before either one of us makes any kind of commitment, how about if I work in the company for a week for free?
Mm.
Put me on the payroll, nothing. I'll work in the company. I'd like to work in the roasting plant for a few days. I like to work on the trucks for a few days. I like to work on the stores for a few days. At the end of that week, if you think that I fit and I think that it's a fit for me, then let's talk. And so at the end of that week, I had fallen in love with Starbucks, and fortunately, he extended an invitation for me to join. But not everything in life do you need to get paid for, and this was a
That's
proof
right.
example. Sometimes you got just do things because it's the right thing to do, and it certainly helped me in that situation.
Yeah. I'm curious when because you really put yourself out there. You really said, hey, I'm going to invest in this. I'm going to try in different roasting plant, different departments. I'll work for free. I feel like in today's world, because so many employees has faced some sort of trauma, maybe it's a layoff and by no fault of their own from a previous company, or they just feel like, hey, they're rather disposable. At the end of the day, a lot of companies out there is about a bottom line. What would your message be to that person that wants to fit the right culture, but who's had a little bit of employment trauma per se? How do they trust again? Like how you were able to trust Howard's vision?
Well, you got to do your work.
Mm.
You don't go just interview for a job and say, I'll take it. You better have done your pre work and said, is this the kind of place I want to be? Who are the people that run this? And what kind of people are they? And that means you got to ask questions of people that work there or people that know of the organization because we're not victims here. We
Yeah.
have the ability to check out things that we're interested in. And I always say that to people when I speak to college students, I said, do your pre work, find out, what are the values of the organization?
Mm.
People that work there, and how are those values lived and reinforced? And what happens when you make a mistake at this company? What happens to that kind of person that makes a mistake? What happens when you do something really well? How do you get rewarded? And do everything you can do to find out if this organization and the people working in this organization fit who you are. I think
Mm.
it's not. These are this is when you invest the time and the effort, and not just get excited about getting a job. Now, if you need a job to put food on the table right away, fine. There's lots of things you can do, for a short term. But if you're looking to make a career out of someplace, then really got to do your investigation.
Gotcha. Gotcha. You talked about find out how employers going to treat you when you make a mistakes. I'm curious for you as a leader's perspective. I know one of your story where you wanted to give a dollar raise to all your employees and end up costing the money double amount. So when leaders make a mistake in your particular situation, when you end up making that mistake, when you realize that, what was your emotional state at that time? Because the weight was on your shoulder. I'm curious, like, were you like a high emotional, oh, I made a mistake, but I've got to fix it? Or were you more like even keels, like, you know what, I made a mistake, I'm get back in the ring, it's going to be okay? I'm wondering from a leadership perspective, is it good to have full spectrum of energy, or is it just kind of a little, you know, even
I'm not,
keeled per
I
se?
am not an even keeled guy. Okay, I'm an emotional guy. I'm high charged. I'm an A-type personality. But when that happened, I was on vacation. I said, "Oh, damn." I said something else besides that, but uh,
Yeah.
and I came back from my vacation, we dug in to say where did we make the mistake, and we fixed it. But I wasn't panicked. It wasn't. Did I think that Howard might fire me? Yeah, maybe, but I'm never afraid of being fired. I always believe you got to be willing to bet your job every day to do the right thing. So, I always knew I could put food on the table. I never feared that. And
Hmm.
so I just figured out how to fix it. Got together with a team and we did it together, and we made the adjustments we needed to make, and we moved on. And I've made lots of mistakes along the way. And I think the biggest thing is to acknowledge it, to own it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually somebody that reported to me that had made a miscalculation. Well, it's not their fault. It's my fault. I didn't check it out well enough. So I owned it. I didn't blame them. I owned it, and we moved forward. And I think that's the most important thing for any leader, is to step
Mm-hmm.
up to the plate. When you do it, when you make a mistake, own it yourself. Don't blame your people. Even when they're the ones that did it, step in the way of the bullets that are flying. And then correct it later with them. But always be the one that takes responsibility and accountability.
Gotcha. Hey guys, I don't run any ads in this podcast because my mission is to make an impact in your life and help you move the needle towards your aspiration. It will mean a lot to me if you subscribe, share, or leave a comment. I would love to hear from you so we can spread the word and make a further impact together. All right, back to the conversation. I'm wondering, in that situation, you being the corporate leader, how was the communication to the employees? Because they were probably really thrilled. Hey, everyone got a raise,
Well,
but now that this thing is costing company the double amount than anticipated. How did that communication go?
I didn't say a word. I mean,
Uh,
we just left it in place, and they
mm,
didn't need. I mean, I talked to the people that reported me. I said I blew it, and here's
mm,
what I blew it. We got to figure out how to fix it. But we weren't gonna. The people in the stores, that was not their problem. That was my problem.
gotcha.
You know,
Wow.
not their issue. So, I mean, if they asked me, I would have told them. But
Mm.
but it certainly we weren't going to take it back.
Mm, gotcha. Okay. One of the questions I want to touch base on this year, as we're heading into election year, in the principle of your book right here, it's not about a coffee. Absolutely loved it. My favorite leadership book of all time, and honored to have this conversation with you. You talked about wearing one hat and speak the truth. It just feels like that's harder to do nowadays. Intrinsically, it feels like we know we should be speaking the truth in our heart, but sometimes the words won't come out because, well, the opposition are easily emotionally triggered, or maybe they have a negative bias assumption towards me, or whatnot, and just it feels our country is so divisive in today's world. How do you deal with that? How do you influence other people, perhaps that have a negative bias or assumption towards you, maybe on your core values or religious belief? Yeah.
Well, you know, all I can do is be Howard,
Mm,
and I can live by my values, which I'm real clear about. I can live by my mission statement, and what I call my 6 Ps, which is how I do everything in my life. And I tell everybody that's interested about that. And I can't, my job isn't to change somebody's feelings towards me
Mm,
by manipulating them or by saying something that isn't honest, just so that they they may feel better about me. My
mm,
job is to be Howard, and
mm,
everybody's going to like Howard. Not everybody is going to, want to associate with Howard. That's okay. I don't have to be everything to everybody. What I need to be is honest with myself and honest to other people, and serve other people and care about people. And in so doing, hopefully the people that I meet will respect me at least, even though they may disagree with me. And, we disagree about lots of things in life. I mean, I don't know if you're married or not, but I've been married for 47 years. Trust me, we have had lots of disagreements in those 47 years about a lot of things, but you find your way to work through them.
yeah.
And like with kids, I have 2 kids,
Yeah.
and I have 6 grandchildren. We don't agree on everything,
Sure.
and but but when we disagree, we do it with love in our heart. And sometimes things get heated and emotional, but you always have to figure out how to back down. In today's world, I mean, the politics of the United States, it's not just the United States.
Yeah.
It's it's the politics of everywhere in the world. I mean, around the world,
Mm,
you see the issues surfacing, massive
yeah.
disagreement about things. And people don't have patience for other people. And
Mm,
in this country, it's kind of, there's one word that I think makes up the grease of life, and that's trust.
mm,
If you don't trust people, if you distrust people, then you're not going to want to associate with them, right? And you're not gonna be around them. You're not gonna, uh, you won't listen to anything they have to say. And so the key, I think, to having good relationships is having trust.
mm,
Giving trust before you get trust. I always believe in that. Until somebody proves they're unworthy of my trust, I trust them. I trust what they
yeah.
say, what they mean, and what they'll do. And you get disappointed sometimes in your life, and that's okay. And then you know that person is not somebody that you can depend on their word. It doesn't make them
Right.
necessarily a bad person. It depends on what it is. But right now, there's so much distrust in the United States. It's incredible. Everybody points a finger and blames other people.
That's right.
You know, if you practice a different religion than I
Mm,
do, if your sexual orientation is different,
yeah.
it's we internalize all that stuff as if it's a threat to us. I mean, I don't care what your religion is. That's not a threat to me. That's what you believe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I'm
You
Christian.
you
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
might say, "Here's why you believe that," and I can say, "That's great and good for you, and I support you in your beliefs." Those are not my beliefs, but that's okay. We don't need to believe all the same.
Mm,
And but that's not what's going on now. There's this endless conflict of you know if you're lesbian, if you're gay, you're not. There's something wrong with you. If you're a
mm,
Republican or if you're a Democrat, there's something wrong with you. If you're a Christian
right.
or you're a Muslim, there's something wrong with you.
Something wrong with everybody.
And that just is not
Yeah.
that's just not true.
Yeah.
But it's a flaw in humanity. It's a flaw in human beings. You and I go to different high schools and we have competing
Yeah.
football teams. And we hate each other's football teams. We don't really,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we're competitive and we want to win. Well, that doesn't mean that we don't shouldn't care about. I shouldn't respect your football team, and you should respect mine. We can be competitive at the game and cheer and be mad when a play doesn't goes against us, but then we got to let it go. And if we don't do that, it's going to be a difficult world for all of us,
Mm,
for our grandkids.
absolutely. At the end of the day, we're all human beings.
Yeah.
That's the thing that unites us. I want to share a excerpt from the book right here, and one of my favorite passage from the book had read this over book over 3 times. It's a part on never leading never stops, and in life, it's about reaching the big goals, keeping our eyes on our big, hairy, audacious goals is achieved through daily actions in here and now. And also, you mentioned listening to a small voice is one that will really get us there. If you listen to that voice in yourself, in the people you lead, in the customers you serve, and the partners you work with, you'll stay close to your values and no matter and what matters to you and the rest of the organization. I feel like with people, when it comes down to like leading, learning, growing, people always do their part for most people when the catastrophic mistakes happen or something really severe happened in one trauma in their life. They get a bypass and all of a sudden, oh, I'm going to start eating really healthy for the rest of my life or maybe for a period of my life. But what separates, I feel like, the people that are really operating at a high level, and like you mentioned, people like you, is that they're able to do it at a consistent level when things are going good. I'm wondering, is that something that some people have it on their stone, or can people be more consistent even when times are good to be continue leading, to do the right thing, not just what's right for them, to do the hard thing, make themselves feel uncomfortable?
No, I think that we can all learn, and we're all capable of doing what's right for ourselves. What's right,
Mm,
you may think pizza is terrible. It's got high fat, it's got, pepperoni and all that kind of stuff, and it's not good for you. I may like pizza and I eat a piece of pizza now and then, and so each of us goes down our different pathway and we have to respect each pathway. Now, I think you're right. Sometimes it
mm,
takes personal discipline
mm.
to get things done. If I want to lose 10 pounds, I can't eat pizza every night. You know, I can't be drinking a couple of scotches every night. I can't do that. If I want to be healthy, I've got to walk. I'm not a big
Yeah.
time exercise guy, but I like to walk and so I do that. So everybody finds their own pathway, but you got to be disciplined about your pathway. And that takes some effort. They say it takes 21 days to create a new habit.
Mm,
So if you want to be on a if you want to lose 10 pounds, then all you have to commit is 21 days of healthy eating. And after that 21 days, you'll have created hopefully a new habit, and you'll continue on with your journey of losing the rest of your 10 pounds, um, or whatever it happens to be. So yeah, it does. Does it take? Yes, it takes personal discipline, and we all have it in different areas. When it comes to um, working with people and treating people well and serving people, I am totally disciplined about that.
mm.
And when it comes to exercising every day, not I'm not that motivated to do it. So
Yeah.
I don't. Now, should I? Maybe, yeah, probably. But and some people
Mhm.
do, and I'm always amazed at. I'm always in awe of people that accomplish great things, particularly
Yeah.
physical. But I have never been that physical a person, so I watch ballet dancers or basketball players, and yeah, or anything. People that do musicians that do great, and I'm in awe of what they do. But they
Mm.
have given a lot to do that.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes.
Absolutely.
When it came to work and Starbucks and serving people, I gave my all the time. And I
Yeah.
was totally disciplined about that. I gave of myself even when it was painful. And sometimes.
Yeah.
And because I had made that commitment and I'm driven to do that.
Right.
So each of us has kind
It's
of our
amazing.
own place,
Mm.
to do it. And some people don't. Some people are
Mm.
just not capable of disciplining themselves. They just can't. And,
Mm.
I don't look at those people and say they're bad people. They just are living their life, and not everybody has the same. I think everybody has the same potential or capabilities, but not everybody has the same mental abilities to do things sometimes.
Wow. Well said. Well
Yeah.
said. And just for the record, I absolutely love pizza. That's like my favorite comfort food, especially when I'm sick. I'm like, yeah, give me all you like whole pizza by myself. Uh, yeah. So You've lived a remarkably accomplished life. I'm in my mid 30s now, and I continue to live my purpose, which to serve others, make a positive impact in this world. But I often reflect back on my life, and I wish I knew certain discernments, life experiences that I would apply to younger Kevin when I was younger. I'm wondering for you, in your whole life of being a servant leader, are there any philosophies or framework that you came to realize maybe in the last few years that you would really amend to a younger version of you?
Well, here's what I believe, that you should live a life of intention.
Mm,
There's an old saying, if you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there.
yeah.
And
Mhm,
so I think that everybody should write down their values, 8 to 10 core values, and then define what those values mean to them. And everybody should have a personal mission statement, or a BHAG, whatever you want to call it, big, hairy, audacious goal.
yeah.
And everybody should write a paragraph or a few sentences about how they want to live their life. So I'll show you something. I'll share with you. So then I've carried
Mm,
this piece of paper around with me for over 50 years. And on this
wow.
piece of paper I call it a picture of Howard in 50 words or less. It's got my personal mission statement, which goes like this. I want to live my
Mm,
life every day, nurturing and inspiring the human spirit, beginning with myself first and then for others. And so, a reason why I say self first is what I've learned after living as long as I have. If you're not okay with you, it's difficult to help somebody else. And
mm,
then I have my core values, my 8 core values. There are other words that would represent values that I live by, but these are my core ones: honesty, fairness, respect for self and others, responsibility, integrity,
mm,
trust in self and others, caring, and love. Now, then I have to define those, because let's take honesty. If
mhm,
I asked everybody that's listening today, are you honest? Probably everybody pretty much would say, yes, I'm honest. Maybe somebody would say no, but pretty much, yes, I'm honest. And then I'd say, well, what would you tell a white lie about?
mm.
We all have told white lies. Nobody has not told a white lie, right?
Absolutely.
So you have to define, see, values are just words until they're turned into actions,
Mm,
right? No, until they turn into something. And then I have how I do everything, my 6 P's. And the first P is everything I do in my life has to have a purpose greater than myself, bigger than me. It's always about serving others. And then the second P is, if I have a purpose greater than myself, then I should be damn well I better be passionate about it. Put all my
mm,
energy behind it. Get up in the morning, charged to do the things that I've set out to do. And then the third P is persistence. In the rivers we call our lives, there are rocks. Some of those
mm,
rocks we can see out in the distance, sits above the waterline. Some rocks we don't see, they sit below the waterline. And some rocks, amazingly enough, we put there ourselves. And we hit those rocks every now and then. Well, we've got to be persistent enough to get around, through, over, or blow those rocks up, so that we can be persistent in our journey of what accomplishing our greater purpose. And then the fourth P is patience. Now you'd say, well, patience and persistence are opposites of each other, but not really. You got to be patiently persistent. Not everything comes in the time frame that you want it to come, and not everybody that
mhm,
reports to you will get what you get when you want them to get it. And uh,
mm,
and so you have to have patience with people, and you have to have patience with ideas sometimes, but you got to stay with it. So you got to be persistent in your journey and patient about when it happens. And then the fifth P is performance. Performance matters. You got to do what you commit to do. If you commit to another person to do something, then you darn well better get it done. If you
mm.
get married and you commit to a monogamous relationship, then you better live up to that. If you
That's
commit
right.
to your
Yeah.
son or daughter to go to their soccer game, then you better show up. If you commit at work to get a project done, then you better get it done, or tell somebody early that you need help. But performance matters. We're getting measured every day by our significant others, our spouses. We get measured by our kids. We get measured by our bosses. We get measured by our coworkers. We get measured by our friends, etc. So performance matters in this world. And then the final P is people. There's everything we do in life is about serving another person. I don't care what your title is. I don't care what your job function is. I don't care what you do. It's always about serving somebody. If you're a widget maker that makes widgets, it gets sold to a company that builds printing presses. That printing press gets sold to a publishing company that produces a magazine or newspaper that gets delivered to somebody's home to inform or entertain them. The lowly widget maker, his role is to serve others. And it's important that we see those connections between ourselves
Yes.
and
Hmm.
serving people, because that keeps us going. We'll never burn out if we're constantly aware of those things. But we may get tired and may need to refresh. But if you're always serving other human beings, you never burn out. You always feel good about yourself.
1000%. What you said right there just really encapsulated your whole life principle. So thank you for so much for sharing that. And I know it's in draft mode right now, but very similarly to what I said, that you do it online, I do it in a Notion.
Yeah,
But you inspire me. It's in draft mode because I'm always kind of looking at it, editing, but just like very quickly, just like one sentence to each, and then putting that into place. So thank you for sharing that because that certainly put an impact in my life.
yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. If you don't write it down, it's just wishes, hopes, and dreams. Write it down. It's the one thing. So you asked, what if I was the young Howard? What would I tell that young Howard to do?
Mm,
You can do this work at 12 years old. You can begin that journey, or 10,
yeah.
and you can start thinking about it. Or you can do it at 80 if you've never done it before. Better to live what is remaining of your life with intention than not. And if you're young, it's better to start that journey early.
Hmm. Absolutely. Well, I want to be respectful of your time. And there's one story that I really absolutely enjoyed. That's the story of you and your father work in the grocery store. And was it like strawberry and banana? And I imagine that story, the lessons you learned from that really set you up probably on a journey to servant leadership later in life. And may I ask you to elaborate that story and its lessons learned with my audience?
Sure. Well, my
Yeah.
father was 50 when I was born. My father had a small mom and pop grocery store. He was an immigrant to Seattle.
Yeah.
And, I would go after school to the store every day. My mother was working there and my dad was working there. And it was really a small mom and pop. And I used to watch my dad and pay attention and do little chores around the store and eat Twinkies and cupcakes, and those
Yeah.
delicious fruit pies that I love, you know. And one day I was standing up at the counter. My dad was ringing up a customer. Now in those days, they had charge accounts and in the store. So the little booklet for each customer, my dad would ring the customer up, take the slip, put it against the book, staple it to the book. At the end of the month, he would bill the customer.
Yeah.
Well, he was ringing the customer up, and he was almost done. He said to me, he said, "Howard, go get me a couple of baskets of strawberries." And so I went to the back of the store. I brought the strawberries up. My dad put them in the bag, and the customer walked out. Well, I was old enough to realize that my dad hadn't rung those strawberries up on the cash register. And so I
Mm.
said, "Dad, you forgot to ring those up on the cash register." And he just looked at me and said, Howard, not everything we do in life do we need to get paid for. This goes to that with Howard Schultz and that not needing to get paid for, and paid for everything we do in life. And he said, these people are not just our customers. They're our friends and then our neighbors. And I happen to know they're struggling right now. They can't afford fresh fruit. And so it's just my way of helping them out. And that's what my
Wow.
dad did. They were neighbors. They weren't customers. They were people that cared about him and that he cared about. And I never forgot that lesson. I didn't understand its importance until much later on in life. But all too often, we're waiting for the trophy. We're waiting for somebody to
Mm.
put money in our pocket. We're waiting for somebody to give us something. When really, the thing in life is to be giving before you get. And I watched my dad do that. And that was an example that I carried on the rest of my life. And I still carry
Yeah.
on today.
Yeah, and I just actually want to acknowledge that example when you say you carry that on for the rest of your life. That couldn't be a truer statement because when I reached out to you, really nothing I could offer you. but you gave me, the most valuable thing you could offer. You gave me your time, you gave me your wisdom, share with me with your life experiences with my audience. And just want to acknowledge and thank you for that, because you're a living embodiment of that principle. Not everything you do in life, you got to get paid for. And, people like me, we get to pay it forward as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's our responsibility to pay it forward. And so, well,
Absolutely.
Kevin, it's a privilege to be able to do this. You allow me to live out my mission. So,
Likewise. And then I'll also want to give a thanks to your assistant, Kathy, for helping setting this up on the communication as well. So, thank you so much, Howard. It's been an honor and privilege today.
thanks, Kevin.
All right. Take care. All right.
Okay.